Hi guys, so let's talk about steroids today. They're one of the most powerful drugs that we have, but they're equally, if not more, destructive. And I think that warrants a very careful understanding of what they really are. So now when we say steroids, what we're actually referring to are corticosteroids, which are cholesterol-based structures present in your body. They're hormones basically secreted from adrenal gland. And the thing with them is that it's a widespread action that it has. It doesn't work on one particular part of the body. It actually has an action all over the body. Now, when we take a tablet form of it, what we're doing is basically taking a synthetic version of the naturally occurring hormone. And now, what we've got to understand is they've got actions all over the body. Now, what makes the crux of use for steroids is that they are very potent and very good at reduction of inflammation. And whether it is any kind of insult that has happened in your body, whether it's a cut wound, whether it's an infection, bacterial, fungal, viral, they're very good at reducing inflammation. And now with COVID, there comes a stage, there comes a point in the infection where your body can be really, really inflamed. And that's causing more damage than the actual virus. Now, the inflammation could be only particularly in your lungs, or it could be widespread in a whole, large part of the body. And that inflammation causes more damage. And what happens is when we give steroids is that there's a significant reduction in the inflammation. Therefore, it can be life-saving at that point. And this is super important to understand. Now, I'm going to tell you the other actions that it has. And as I'm listing that out, you're going to very quickly understand why they're so dangerous, why we as doctors even think twice and thrice before prescribing it. So number one, steroids cause blood sugars to rise. At the same time, what they do is they create a barrier-like effect on the rest of the body where the sugar can be utilized or taken up. So what it basically makes is a diabetic-like state in a person's body. So you've got a lot of free sugar hanging around in the blood, but nowhere for it to go. And that starts attracting a lot of infection because there are organisms living around us, just floating in the air. And what they see is easy access to a lot of free food. And so you get a person on steroids is way more likely to develop infections. And this actually works counterproductive, especially when you take steroids earlier in the stage of COVID, when the virus actually ends up getting more free food and you end up making yourself a lot more sicker than you would have. The second action of steroids is that they break muscles and bones and skin. They take the proteins from them and break it down into amino acids. Now, what that leads to is you've gotten decreased muscle, you've got decreased proteins in the bone, you've got decreased proteins in the skin. In addition to this, what it does is the calcium that we take during our food, throughout the day, it decreases the level of absorption and increases the level of excretion of calcium in through the kidneys. So in these two combinations, you're going to understand that what you're going to feel, a person on steroid, what they're going to feel is they're going to feel a lot of muscle weaknesses. They're going to have a lot of apathy. They're going to feel like, they can't even raise their hands up. In terms of bone, the people on steroids, they are very, very higher. They've got like much higher chance of experiencing bone fractures, experiencing osteoporosis, bone weakness. And in terms of skin, all this loss of proteins basically makes your skin really thin and fragile and weak. So it's not able to protect itself from infections. It gets bruised really easily. You get a lot of skin infections happening. Another thing to add to this is that steroids actually decrease the WBC count in your body. Now, WBCs are your immunity cells, your white blood cells, and on a daily basis, like 5 to 10% of old cells will die. But when a person is on steroids, the rate at which the WBCs are destructed is actually increased, therefore kind of tanking your immunity and making you more susceptible for infections as well. Another wonderful addition to this action is that they cause water retention. They have an anti-diuretic effect. So what they do is they retain the water in your body, and at the same time, they make your blood vessels really, really rigid. So you've got a high volume and nowhere for this fluid to go. Since you've got rigid capillaries, so what you're going to experience is shooting pressure. So your BP gets higher, especially with hypertensive. That's something really what we would want to watch very closely. Steroids also increase the level of your gastric acid production and your pepsin production. So you're going to experience gastritis. If somebody has a peptic ulcer, that is definitely going to get aggravated. So by listening to all of this, I hope you guys have a very clear picture on why they're such good drugs, but also why we're also scared of them. They're not the drugs to, just pop just because you're feeling a little under the weather. They are good at what they do, but they do have a cascade of side effects that come along with them that are very undesirable. We have already started seeing this with daily reports of nasal mucormycosis on the rise, bacterial infection on the rise, and these are all the people who've had to use steroids while they were infected with COVID. So these are dangerous drugs. I really, really want to request you guys to leave these drugs to the doctors and let them understand your blood condition, where you are in the infection, and then advise you accordingly when is it that they want you to take it. Of course, at any given point of time, please refer to your doctors again and ask them if there's any detail you want. And I really hope that none of this is applying to you and you guys are all safe at home.